Thank you very much. I'm also very excited to be present here again to my favorite conference of the year. And thanks for the introduction. Sorry for not being personally there at Paralanipolis, but yeah, stateless people have even worse travel restrictions at these times than the normal people. So as the introduction said, that I'm a hacker and a cryptographer at various projects and companies, and also a consultant, bug bounty hunter, and sometimes malware analyst. And this talk we gonna abuse a little the original non-ISO version of the EMV standard that's used on contactless and contact payments in our credit cards, because as the hardware got stronger and stronger, I realized that only a handful of people maybe read the whole 700 pages of the EMV protocol, and only a handful, like percent of that, maybe liked Bitcoin so much that they realized that the 144 kilobyte memory that these cards now have actually supports storing UTXOs, and we're gonna talk about the cryptographic features of these new cards, which eventually led me to the realization that maybe we can sign Bitcoin transactions on credit card hardware. So on the agenda, we're gonna recap the problem here, why I think this is still something worthy of research. Then some hardware wallets. We have seen excellent talks here with Alena for Trezor, with Moritz on build your own hardware wallet and stuff, and gonna have a little detour on how to make the cheapest, I think, hardware wallet out of credit card hardware. Then EMV history, like a TLDR version of the protocol. So I tried to distill the 700 pages as much as I could. Then we are gonna clarify the attack assumptions or the misuse assumptions, as this is originally not an attack. This is the feature of an EMV, an overlooked feature. So we are not going to hack into mastercard servers or something, and we're gonna go into detail how to abuse the protocol for BTC. So problem formalization. Still, only 1% of the population owns coins. This is a long-going subject, even on this conference, like people trying to go into adaptation and stuff. And this is my personal view, and that is that most end users can't absorb new technology that fast. And a misconception is that BTC, Bitcoins, and crypto user experience is bad, and that's why it's happening. But in my experience, as most likely, I made my first online money transfer on Bitcoin, and that I transacted fiat only after. BTC UX is just fine; it's great. Decentralized thinking is the hard part, and that's not part of UX. And usually these times, generally in software and in technology, backward compatibility design helps, but we can't really do that with crypto. And we saw that many trials, and we're gonna have examples on the next slide on that. But crypto is just super hard to make backward compatible because it's so novel and so new. So not so clever place. This is a very biased version of my views. Stable coins, in my opinion, absolutely out of the question to make backward compatible crypto views. Also, Apple banks like Revolut supporting crypto, where you can only buy basically the exchange rate and you don't have access to your keys and such, is also just putting dirt under the rug. There are Visa cards supporting Bitcoin in a way that real time you spend fiat money from a pool or from the company, like for, I think the old version of Monaco, now called crypto.com, worked like this. So you spend directly at the point of the sell fiat from their pool, and after the settlement interval, which happens between the acquirer and the card issuer, you actually spend your money. And only CoinDesk, as far as I know today, only CoinDesk had a version of the same stuff, but they exchange your crypto real time, not after the settlement interval. So there are more clever plays to make it make crypto more accessible, like hardware wallets, like Trezor and Ledger. They're super good on the end user level for adaptation, but less on the acquirer level because they need separate apps, APIs, integration, and we know that commerce and e-commerce can't really keep up with these stuffs. I mean, when I tried this attack with my credit cards, I had to realize that my bank still uses embedded SOAP inside SOAP, so XML everywhere and such. So, and also some hardware hacks have been introduced recently. I think this year has been one Ledger side channel attack, and also last year there was another side channel private key reading with lasers. And exotic operations on Trezor and ledgers are not really possible, so no Monero stealth addresses and bulletproof and such, and exotic cryptographic plays. So when I was looking into what to use, what's the hardware, I didn't see practical attack for a while, and last time I saw practical hardware level attacks on credit cards was Max Butler days when I was still a script kiddie with hacking, so I didn't have a chance to actually hack something. But reading the specifications of these NXP GCO cards that our banks use, they're actually super strong. I don't know any credit card hacks on hardware level recently. Please comment or share with me. These slides are available actually online on HackMD, and maybe edit it if you know any that I don't. Backward compatible, I mean this on a mental level, because most people intuitively know or already know how to use these, because 2.5 billion cards are out there as of today, excluding the United States. That's a lot. This is actually how I realized this is the number why Oracle claims 3 billion devices run Java out in the world. I was wondering why they claim that, but after reading these statistics, I think this is what they mean, because these cards also run a super restricted dumb version of Java in them. They are super affordable. Like the card with the highest memory costs like 10 or 15 euros, and the ones I wanted to get to testing, it costed 4 euros. So compared to Ledger and Friends, that's very affordable, and they support very generic levels of cryptography. So yeah, they have hash accelerators for SHA, triple DES, AES, but the most important feature for me is that they have elliptic curve arithmetics generalized to finite fields, which means that with using a clever transformation for the twisted Edwards form to the Weierstrass form, we can also support curve 25519 on these cards and make ECDSA signatures on that. But if we can support this arithmetics and we have access to a random number generator and hashes, then we can also do stealth address generations and maybe even bulletproofs. On the last part, I'm kind of uncertain. This was just a hunch, but maybe even bulletproofs are possible with generalized EC. So the requirements of the abuse of protocol I wanted back when I started this project early this year is that I wanted to use standard commercially available JCOP cards. That was a hard question, because commercially available, as I had to realize, is not that easy, because first, cards with this high level or this much flexibility of programmable level, people you can buy these from are really curious about what you want to use it for. You have to fill a lot of paper, and it's not like you just go to a web shop and buy some generalized EC arithmetic JCOP cards. They want to do their KYC on people, and actually I couldn't get those cards with my consulting company, so they even looked into that. A consulting company with this profile can't have these cards, so they simply rejected my payment on that. So another requirement is that the private key stays on the cards, because this idea couldn't compete with Monaco and all the people who already issued Visa-supported cryptocurrency cards, because they're custodial, and that's, if it's not your keys, that's not your coins. Everybody knows that. Third requirement is the reader terminal is unmodified. So I don't want to build my own readers, my mobile apps on Android for accepting, because deploying those to acquirers and shops is just too tedious, too legally binding, and most likely impossible on a large scale. Another part is that the technological part, which I'm involved in, does not involve any fiat currency in the process. Now I have to put here that the legal part might do, because we're gonna see that there are certificate trust of chains involved, and I still don't know what it takes. I've tried to go, and I've already started to talk on how to formally get that, but I have the feeling that I'm not gonna get signed by a certificate authority with necessary due diligence, meaning that I'm not a bank. So for testing, I used the smart card reader I received with my Estonian ID card, and two really old Skrilled cards, from which the upper one is unusable. I broke it with some APDU command, and it doesn't want to receive anything else. The bottom one is not bricked, but the ATC is broken, so also not gonna be useful for payments, even though it's already expired. So the ATC is not the only matter of concern here. So EMV, let's start with the protocol with some history before jumping into the specifications. So after the huge Max Butler, Iceman script, and Cortic forums golden age of carding hacks, EMV came into play with collaboration of Europaid, MasterCard, and Visa to make a standardized and flexible, and I have to stress this, it became so flexible that now we can sign Bitcoin with this. So flexible, secure protocol for payments. Also communication channel agnostic, because we see that it doesn't matter whether it's you put it in a physical reader or just NFC and PayPass, contactless payments, or host card emulation if you put it on your phone. And when EMV came into play, we see that the golden age of credit card hacking is over. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to be active there. And carding came to a halt, or really slowed down. And 99%, this is my own statistics, but I think it's not really inaccurate. So 99% is about social engineering and clever cashing out through Amazon gift cards and stuff. So TLDR LMV, the really important field for us, because it has, like, I don't know, a bunch of abbreviations that you have to dig out from the 700 pages of specifications. These are the most important ones as a programmer and as a hacker you have to take care of. The card and the protocol uses ASM.1 binary encoding rules format. There is an ATC, the transaction counter, which is gonna be incremented at not only the critical parts, so even reading some app specifics files out from the card is gonna increment this ATC counter, and if it's not aligned with the bank, your card's gonna be declined. So when you are testing this idea, really use some expired card, because if you read into the MasterCard app with get processing options, as we are gonna see, you're gonna increment this ATC, and basically your card's gonna be unusable. You have application IDs, or in theory you have multiple IDs, but in practice you only have one, which consists of an RID, which you got from the certificate authority or the payment processor who signs your part of the keys, and the PIX, which is your part to differentiate your different apps and your different apps from the card. You have PDUL, which is the processing options data list. Is basically a list of what stuff my card supports. The reader gonna ask it from you, and you these consist of like, I support online verification with pins and blocking if the pin is entered wrong time 3 times and such. So these are supported functionality of the card. And most importantly, the TVR, which is the transaction verification results. It's an 8-bit result of the transaction, which you actually, even though something happens at the very end of the transaction lifecycle, you're not gonna see, because which is very clever, because we can do side channel analysis based on time and such. So we won't be able to extract the information where the forgery or something failed, because the errors are gonna be just ORed together, maxed together into this TVR, and only at the very end you're gonna know that if many of these masks are won, that then your transactions are gonna be rejected. So communication between the terminal and the card uses standard T0 type APDU format, which consists of a class, usually 0, as hardware hackers in the audience already know. Instruction A4, as you all know, parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3, as in the APDU specification, it can be a P3, but we all know that in T0 and EMV also this indicates how large of a response I expect back from the terminal. So I send down the class instruction parameters, and P3 indicates that this is the maximum amount of data a payload can consist as a response from me. So transaction lifecycle. Step 1 is select application. This was the first surprise for me. And I had to put my head around this, that if these cards support multiple applications, why every one of them only has one? So this select application is involved in the transaction lifecycle, but if it only has one app, then what's good for it? Why can't I have a single credit card for all my bank accounts and applications if the terminal can select, or I can select one? And it's most likely because of accountability. So I assume they couldn't resolve if I lose my credit card, then which bank do I have to call for a replacement if I had all my bank accounts on them? So inside these apps, you have so-called AFLs, application file locators, which are application-specific files within these little apps. So first step is that we select these. This you can do freely without breaking the card. You can use EMV tool, a Python script on GitHub to read these, or CardPeek. That's a more advanced GUI applications to browse cards that I can recommend, and I also used for this presentation. Second step, get processing option, which gonna get the PDUL list from our card into the terminal. Now, pay attention. This is the first step where you will increment the ATC, and from this, that card is for hacking only. Never enter it into a terminal, because that's gonna raise some red flags at your bank for fraud. So get processing options. The terminal and the card basically agree on app versions, protocol versions, and such for these, and verification options, because you have various levels of online and offline verifications, and the card have to send which kinds are supported. So third step, read application data from the selected app. The second surprise in this protocol is that you can't specify which files you want to read, which makes the AFL, the application file locator fields, kinds of obsolete for me, because what are they for if I can specify these for reading? And we're gonna see on later slides that it was designed for something else. So basically, read app data means that you are gonna have to read everything inside that app. So if you are talking about a cryptocurrency wallet on mastercard protocol, I expect everyone to encrypt different parts of the wallet well, because a reader will read every key or every file inside these applications. And thankfully, we do support in-place encryption on the card, because it has AES and even integrated elliptic curve integrated encryption you can do on this card. So technically, it's all possible. So after reading the application-specific files, we have check one. I'm just gonna. Okay, I just checked if we are still in line. So after reading application-specific files, the terminal is gonna do its first round of fraud detection and risk management checking. So,
hi.
Yes.
We're just wondering, did you have any
Yes.
slides? Because I don't think that you're sharing your screen. Yeah.
Oh Jesus!
We were wondering whether, like, you're like alluding to some metaphorical slides, or whether you actually have any. I just wanted to jump in and let you know.
No, but it's okay. It's
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well,
it's fortunate that these slides are actually a public website. I just pasted into the room here, and everyone can check it real time. So all of my slides are using HackMD, and you can recap it. Sorry for the
not at all.
complication.
We should have realized sooner. So tell you what, if you can share them now, and then the rest we'll share through Paralanipolis through the channels, so that people can catch up in the schedule.
Yes. Okay. I shared it here in the panel, and if you would be so kind to put it on the Telegram chat, also, and every channel. So, sorry, people.
Thank you.
So let's slide back. So, problem formulation, stable coins, yes. JCOP cards. Just a very short recap on the APDU, select app, get processing options, read app data, and check one. So here we were. Let's get back to full screen. So coming back after the technical issues. So based on the application specific data, we got like card expiry, application versions, processing options. The terminal is gonna have its first round of fraud checking, and of course, if the card expired, the application versions don't align, or it's going to mask some of the TRV bits. If two of these bits are set at this step, then the transaction is guaranteed to fail. And also at this step, the terminal is gonna verify our card's key certificate rest of chain. And yeah, there is a certificate rest of chain in the process. There is a certificate authority that has to sign us, the issuer part, that the terminal is gonna check back at the acquirer. The terminal has hard-coded public key of the certificate authority and its acquirers, and it's gonna cross-check what we provided with X506 certificates with this authority. So we have to be signed for the transaction to succeed. Most likely, this is the most challenging, or one would accept this is the most challenging part of making your own Bitcoin credit cards. But my research concluded that it's surprisingly easy, at least on statistics level, because on formalities, I'm still trying to find partners who are willing to sign my credit cards, so I can actually test these on a shop. But statistically, when I looked into who can self-sign their certificates and be certificate authorities, I found really interesting stuff like several airline loyalty cards, even in Zimbabwe. So you don't have to be like Star Alliance and such level to self-sign your own certificates. Really small, no-name loyalty cards can be needed. Even Disney has its own. Even Disney is a certificate authority. I expect the cards in Disneyland were so out of scale that they had to make their own travel agencies and even sports event and programs. So NHL cards are not signed by anyone. So NHL is its own certificate authority for their Visa supported cards. So I expect that it's you don't have to have definitely a banking license to have your own credit card. So for check 2, for the second part, because at check 1 we only verify that the card itself is valid, its expiry is valid, its versions align. So on step 2 we're gonna verify that the credit card holder as a person is authorized to use this card. So it has multiple versions, which this is one part that the PDOL consists of what verification methods we support, and the terminal and the card have to agree on those. So cryptographic signature with the RSA, this is increasingly popular in Mexico and some parts of the US, but in the EU we still use offline enciphered PIN, and this enciphered crypto is very less documented, and I'm still not sure, because two documentation on how these enciphered pins work kind of contradict. What I can tell is that it uses a clever, almost hash derivation function like version that has your pin rotated into, and this key is actually used in a session key derivation. So your card pin is used as part of the session key with every payment in the next step. And we can also use combinations of the offline PIN verification and the signatures, which sounds super cool. I don't know any banks that support this. Please also make a comment if your bank supports it. So the last step of risk management is that the terminal and the card must agree whether to continue here from offline to online, and the reader has little more power on this decision. So if the reader said to the card that we have to continue offline because, for example, either you made too many offline ATC increments in the past, or one of the TRV flags are already won and you are like borderline fraud with this transaction on my previous risk management steps, and we have to ask your bank for verification. So the reader has more power, but if the reader asks offline verification from the card still can ask online version. And this is also one part when the ATC increment will result your card blocked. And here comes the interesting part, where we're gonna put the Bitcoin transaction here. One, the terminal communication is relayed from the acquirer to the issuer, which is us, in encrypted form, and the acquirer is not involved in any of the fraud detection and the transaction verification. It's because of scalability. It's not decentralization, it's like federated decentralization. I shouldn't be involved into John Doe buying bread at the store. That's the acquirer's policy, and we're gonna just do the settlement at the end. So the issuer will have to know a location or some communication info embedded on the card, that who the issuer is, who do I have to ask for transaction validity, which we can write on the card if we have ability to it. So we have no technical, and I stress this term, so we have no technical restriction on making our own EMV backend, hard-coded on the card, because the EMV protocol will read this out and communicate with the issuer directly. Of course, it has various legal reasons that nobody does this. So after all these fraud detection steps and checks that reader and the card have to agree on, the transactions are packed in a very flexible ARQC request, which is a request cryptogram term, which I don't know why they called in the specification like this. This is basically one problem or one super flexible stuff that we're gonna exploit here is that the ARQC has to be made by the card, not by the reader. On a technical level, I still don't really get why this decision was made, because usually the cashier enters the amount into the terminal and it should make the request, and the card should only sign it. But as the specification said, we have these ready. Actually, I'm just gonna, can I send files into the chat? No? Then I will just upload on the Q&A the whole specification here. So the specification clearly says that the card makes the ARQC based on the data that the reader sends it, and it has no specified format. As for the EMV specification, now there are some ISO specification. I think ISO 8583 specifies an ARQC format for contactless payment, but EMV itself has no restriction on it. And this is when I had the idea, so maybe I can sign a UTXO as an ARQC, because the acquirer doesn't see it, because communication through the acquirer is encrypted, and the last stamp on transaction validity is on the issuer, whom if have access to a Bitcoin full node can verify a signed UTXO. On the next step, we have an optional second card action, which I don't know whether is useful in the protocol. If there are some technical issues, for example, I still don't know whether I'm gonna be signed with my demo from a bank. If not, then I can most probably use this step 8, the optional second card action, to make some lightning level exchange or lightning level hackery. But in the original hack or the original abuse of protocol, step 8 is excluded, as it's originally optional in the whole EMV process. The second part of our script, because UTXOs has to be present on the card, so we also need an ability to update them. This is actually a part I got some help from Max Hillebrand. Hi, if you're there. So this problem was pointed out by him. So on the last step of the transaction verification, we have the ability to run arbitrary Java bytecode on the card. So from the issuer goes encrypted back to the acquirer, to the terminal, and the terminal sends raw encrypted Java bytecode to the card, like your bank said you have to run this. And this means that we can update our UTXOs on the card. So going into the attack for real now. Our assumptions that we are signed by a certificate authority that I listed at the beginning. Otherwise, you are committing credit card fraud, which I'm not gonna encourage on video. So also on the issuer side, we have a fully synchronized Bitcoin full node, because we don't want to harm the Bitcoin network with double spending and such. We are gonna only use online authentication. When I started this project beginning of this year, I was super excited when I realized that you can use offline authentication and strictly just public key signatures for verifying a transaction. I had to realize that you can only do these 2 or 3 times maximum with the card before a reader will enforce you online verification, because too many offlines are very risky for them. And also ATMs only have online verification, so you can't ask for signature-based verification on an ATM. And during these attacks, we don't care how the settlement legally happens between the issuer and the acquirer, most likely because I don't have a clue about legal stuffs. So even though I have some assumptions and some thoughts on how these can be circumvented, I'm not in the position to give advices on that. So the issuer information, which is basically us, is stored on the card. The acquirer communicates with this issuer in a triple-X encrypted channel, which means that we have no technical restriction to write our Java-based backend. You probably want the Java-based backend for these, for compatibility reasons. Most likely EMV will only have Java-based SDKs for you. So the card stores the extended public key for you because we want to support HD wallets, and your UTXO lists. The latest card, the one I want to get signed by a bank, has 144 kilobyte memory, so plenty of memory to store your UTXOs, which also introduces two other problems or concerns about this hack I do here. Yes, this is a privacy issue because all your transactions are gonna be traceable on the issuer's end. It has your public key and even access to your UTXO. So even without the XPub, the UTXO chain is stored by account. This also means that spending from the same key outside of this whole EMV hackery will result in a broken UTXO set, and you are not going to be able to spend your Bitcoins anymore, just like if you would increment your ATC on a fiat credit cards. So the get processing option, the PTOL list, will consist of an online verification and PIN standard European Union format PTOL, and the ARQC is formatted as a Bitcoin Core UTXO. That's going to be forwarded to the issuer, which is first checks for transaction sanity, like it came from the Gossip network, the inventory protocol, forwarded back to the network and form an ARPC. ARPC is basically the ARQC response, which also doesn't have any restriction on its format. So and also can have scripts. So on an ARPC, we tell the terminal that yes, this was a valid transaction. The transaction sanity is fine. The UTXOs are all nice. But for confirmation, we are gonna get back on that on the settlement slide. So as for confirmation, at the beginning, I assume that we either have to wait for confirmation from the network, which most terminal won't support because contactless payment only powers the card for a fraction of a second. So even if we assume that yes, the cashier will wait for the confirmation as a good Bitcoiner should, you have to touch your card a second time and set some ARQC flags to indicate that I'm in this transaction I'm checking back on the previous one's confirmation because my explorer said that it's fine. So this is one, but this is really overkill. So we're gonna assume that as in HCPP, you don't want to disrupt your own community, and the ARPC only consists of Gossip network delivery, not blockchain confirmation in this script. The important part, because all risk management and checkings and cardholder verification, we already passed all that. Whatever the issuer claims about the transaction at this part is absolute justice, and is gonna be treated as such by the terminal, because the terminal had 2 or 3 chances to check for validity, even at the bank, if it wanted online verification, and we always reported that yes, this is the transaction is valid, cardholder verification succeeded. So in this last step with the ARPC, whatever the issuer say is treated true, because what bank would rob themselves from its own money? So they didn't have to make this adversarial behavior modeling and the AMV protocol. It was originally for centralized works or whatever. So yeah, about the previous topic. And for settlement, usually this is a 5 to 7 day interval. This is the part when the acquirer and the issuer actually exchange money, because when you touch your terminal, touch your card and buy some groceries at the shop, what really happens is that at first the card actually just freezes your balance, and only after the settlement interval will the end party will actually get their money. It by law, or by varying law, because it varies by jurisdiction, it should be a 5 to 7 day interval. But as I've consulted with someone with decades of experience in the payment processing and electronic payments industry, they told me that basically no bank respects these 5 to 7 day interval, because they use legacy software and huge amounts of human error, so it's much more chaotic and mostly goes manually. So settlement is like a manual push button whenever someone does that in a dungeon, or I don't know. So another problem with the settlement is that you don't get a certificate authority signature, most likely without due diligence. As I told you, I still don't know that, because I'm still at the beginning of the process, and I really hope they won't want finance licenses from me. And thankfully, self-signing statistically for me seems not that hard as getting those finance licenses. So if I don't get a CA signature from a bank or other financial institute, then I'm gonna go with the self-signing method, because as far as if no-name Zimbabwe flight or travel agency can make their own self-signed certificates for Visa cards, then so I can with an Estonian consulting company. So because this settlement problem is super discouraging in the whole protocol, because we either steal money from the acquirer, which we don't want to do, or we can't do this protocol whole. So let's have an extra assumption. Throughout this talk, we assumed till now that don't have modified readers and modified terminals. It's stocks. If I go to the store now, it's gonna have stock firmware and no additional code. But if we get the extra assumption in that we can do our own readers and such, then we can eliminate, of course, this settlement problem, because it's gonna have access to the same channels into Bitcoin that the card does for checking validity, and we don't have to rely on the original banking logic for settling money between two accounts if the reader also has access to Bitcoin. So yeah, this was the little protocol abuse for EMV that I wanted to present. Also, thanks again, Max, for pointing out the XPub and the UTXO issues. On this, the slides are available online. As I told you, I will reshare it on every channel that I have access into HCPP for. And also I'm gonna share these in a link for people who are interested on the specifics that I try to distill here. And yeah, I'll try to keep up to date with everyone with this project after I get signed by the CEO, by a CA, to sign Bitcoins with credit cards. So I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so much. Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Also, just yes. Triple checking, because like these tech conferences are always fun in the sense that microphones don't work. Right. Does anyone have any questions for SILUR? Right. And I will try my best to get the microphone over to you in some kind of way that doesn't stretch it.
Hey. Hi. I'm just kind of curious regarding the news that's come out around Wirex and their native MasterCard integration for crypto. Do you reckon that anything that you're doing is related to the same kind of process, or is this a completely separate implementation?
I don't know any specifics about VireX, even though I have some colleagues working on that project. I don't know which kind of support for coins they introduced here. I have a feeling, because I've made some research at the beginning of this project on crypto accepting Visa cards, and I have a hunch, don't get this as a guarantee, that VireX also has this: you spend money from a fiat pool, and after settlement interval, they're gonna exchange it and refill the pool. Most Visa compatible crypto cards works this way, as far as I know, but I can't answer you like with super confidence, because I haven't checked VireX specifically their specifications.
Thank you very much.